Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Since the NFL draft, there have been a few players that clearly saw their value rise and have seen a jump in ADP, and then there's some guys that have fallen. We're going to talk about the fallers later. This video, we're going to talk about guys whose stock has been up and how it's reflected in real money best ball drafts on Underdog Fantasy. So thank you guys for being here. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, share the video, click something, and let's go.
He's a legend.
So as I said, Underdog Fantasy has just released their NFL Best Ball menu, well, some of it, for 2022. The Best Ball Mania 3, massive, $10 million in the prize pool, $25 center. They're going to be releasing puppies and the big dog, the low stakes, the high stakes. They got through like 6 puppies last year. So you'll be able to get in where you fit in. But if you use promo code Smizzle on your first deposit to the site, you will get a deposit match up to $100 that you could spend on any of those fantasy drafts for 2022 best ball fantasy football, whether it's a sit and go or a tournament, or you could play them in that pick'em game on any day, whether it's MLB, F1, NBA playoffs, whatever you're looking for. They have it. So go check out the fine products over at underdogfantasy.com. My first riser on the list, James Conner, made it through the draft unscathed. He came in with an ADP of 40 pre-draft. It has risen an entire 10 picks to just over 30.2. He's the RB 15 off the board right now. Like I said, I was getting him in like the 4th round in the pre-draft leagues that I was doing, and like now you're getting him a bit earlier than that. And like I've seen people reach for him at the back end of the 2nd round. So like his ADP is rising constantly. And if we look over and we sort by this, you can see the top guys here. Javonte Williams fell. He was like an RB 6 or 7. People were estimating that Melvin Gordon was going to go away. He's fallen. Fournette up to RB 13. We mentioned him as a big time value earlier. He's now into the 2nd round. Ezekiel Elliott flying, but James Conner outpacing him. And now since, look, I wrote these down last night. He was 30.2. In the last 24 hours, he's risen. Like I said, people are reaching to take him ahead of Saquon. They're taking him right around the time that Fournette goes. He's jumping up and will probably settle out either at the top end of the 3rd round or maybe as high as like pick 22, 23 as people look for those high volume running backs that really aren't going to be splitting as much with everybody else being gone from that team. My second big riser, Marquise Brown, also on the Arizona Cardinals for a couple of reasons, right? So like, let's take a look at what their market share was last season. Marquise Brown was on Baltimore last season, got traded on draft day or around draft day to the Arizona Cardinals, and then other stuff kind of happened. If we look at on NFLsavant.com and take a look at the target tree, right? Christian Kirk, he's gone. AJ Green, he's old. DeAndre Hopkins, he's out for the first 6 weeks of the season. So we're talking about 162 vacated targets. That's a lot. And considering that like Rondale Moore should see a bump in his target market share as well, but is going in a much lower ADP, you're looking at Marquise Brown stepping into a shower narrative situation where he's going to see a ton more targets because of all the ones that have been vacated. 1, by Christian Kirk. 2, the first 6 weeks, you're looking at 25 to 30% of the market share that DeAndre Hopkins would have seen is now got to be soaked up by somebody. And considering that they refuse to throw the ball past the line of scrimmage to Rondale Moore, that means that Marquise Brown is in a similar situation that he was in last year when he had to see this massive volume increase, and then hopefully they allow Kyler to throw downfield because that is his best skill. But he showed that he can be good on those short to intermediate routes and just rack up target 8 to 12 targets a game, and then still be that guy who can hit a big shot deep. On the other side of that coin is Rashod Bateman. Guys, did you hear that Marquise Brown got traded from Baltimore to Arizona? That's going to leave a whole lot of vacated targets because, as I said last year, he was soaking up 27.5% of the target market share on the Ravens. Now, I know the Ravens aren't really a high volume pass game offense, but if you're the top 2 guys, 1, Mark Andrews should see elevated targets this year. And if you're a believer that Rashod Bateman is, you know, somebody who could potentially be a star, you're going to look for what he can do. And his draft position before the draft, his ADP was 120th. 120th overall, very modest ADP. He is at 61 now. you're looking at a guy that you're going to have to take in the first, 5-6 rounds at this point. If he's available in round 6, you're getting a steal. He is going extremely high as the wide receiver 29. Big bounce from him. Marquise Brown, I know I did not mention what his ADP is because I got rambling and I kind of forgot. I apologize. His ADP went from 82 pre-draft and is 41.4 right now. So he's going around pick number 41, middle of the 4th round, and Rashod Bateman going a couple of rounds later, 20 picks later, as the wide receiver 29, being drafted as a wide receiver 3 in these spots. Because as I said, all these vacated targets, if Rashod Bateman is getting 25% of the target market share. Now look, Baltimore could sign somebody. There are very good free agent wide receivers, veteran free agents, guys like Julio Jones. Now, look, he may not make the biggest splash that he made when he was in his 20s, but he's still going to get some sort of love and some sort of targets, especially with the off-field relationship that he has with Lamar Jackson, with him coming back from injury last season to this season. They're not going to have to deal with Snoop under center. They should get the former MVP back. But this is a great spot for Rashod Bateman that we might have to dial back a little bit if they do sign a veteran wide receiver to fill that spot. Then we got a couple of rookies. Obviously, the rookies, when we didn't know where they were going to go, especially those mid to late round rookies, the top rookies that were in the class always were going to be guys that were going to carry a large price tag with them. But when you're looking at guys that were drafted in the 3rd and 4th round, if they got drafted into a really good spot, they're going to move up the ADP charts. And Damien Pierce was one of those guys. His ADP was like 200. He's being drafted in the 18th round. Like, oh, maybe somebody takes him, maybe they don't. Look, he's got not the best pedigree, right? If we look here on Player Profiler, his best comp is Chris Carson. I'm going to give you guys a peek behind the curtain. JJ, if this is not okay, JJ, let me know. But JJ Zachariason, friend of the program, just launched his own site over at lateround.com. This is his amazing, like, look at this. This is absurd. Every prospect, including looks at last year's product, 140 pages from his Z model. And he's got Damien Pierce rated as a Z prospect score of 68%. He's not great. The draft capital, he was drafted really late, but he stepped into a perfect spot for him, with Houston. This is a high volume spot. Now, Pierce is somebody that jumps off the film at you, but JJ's comping him to like Spencer Ware, DJ Dallas, Christine Michael. He mentions that this is a spot, it feels like, in terms of draft positioning, like Samaje Perine, and we all kind of know how Samaje Perine turned out in terms of fantasy. Not dissing Samaje Perine as a person, an individual, or professional. We're only talking about fantasy here, and he's never really produced big-time numbers. Now, Pierce is not being drafted like somebody who has to carry you. You're drafting him as like your 4th or 5th running back on teams, but he's seen a massive jump in ADP, going from 200 pre-draft to about 121 right now in the RB 38. So as I said before, you're drafting him as an RB4 in best ball, which, you know what? Volume over everything when it comes to drafting running backs. Now, if he stays healthy and he gets 250 to 300 touches, he's going to pay off that end of the 10th round spot easily, which is why he's flying up draft boards and to continue to move upward as the season goes along, because in that spot, you're drafting guys that are clearly backups that don't have upside. We know who they are. They're massive. You're drafting like James White's in that area. You're drafting JD McKissick's in that area, where Pierce might be a guy that if he gets a ton of touches and stays healthy, even on a Houston team that's not great, if you get that amount of touches for a young, shifty running back that can do a few things, you put yourself in a much better position. Another guy who's been flying up boards is Sky Moore. This guy was, JJ really liked this guy in his prospect model. He's one of his favorite prospects. And then he goes to flipping Kansas City. All right. So now his ADP has gone from 200 to, as of yesterday, just under 83, 82.8. People are going after Sky Moore because there's just not that much out there. Let's see where he is right now. 81.9, even up a little bit. Being drafted as a wide receiver 39. So you're talking about a guy that you're drafting as your wide receiver 4 in this spot. We're projecting a lot on Sky Moore. Like, I think he's a good prospect. I think he's in a great spot, especially with all the vacated targets that they have, with 156 leaving for Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce getting a year older, 32, 33 years old at this point. Mecole Hardman, he's not great. He's not going to carry it, but Juju Smith-Schuster should step in to the highest volume role, and that opens up a secondary wide receiver spot for Byron Pringle. Him leaving, he's going to step into that role where Pringle and Demarcus Robinson and Mecole Hardman never really took hold of that spot. Well, if you've got Juju running the deep and intermediate routes, and you allow Sky Moore to operate underneath, now we have a spot where maybe he can soak up a good amount of targets from a great quarterback in a fantastic offense that has done nothing but produce 4,500 to 5,000 yards and 35 to 50 touchdowns through the air a year. So big spot for him and being reflected in the ADP. Those are the big 5 movers so far in ADP. Let me know who you think has moved that maybe I missed, that you're either excited to draft now or has been priced out of your equation because there's no longer of value. So thank you guys for watching. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.